بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين ثم أما بعد. In the name of Allah, the most beneficent, the especially merciful, we ask Him to shower His peace and blessings upon our dear and beloved teacher and leader and guide, servant and messenger of Allah, Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and upon his pure family, his good companions, and all those who follow them in righteousness until the last day. As to what follows, welcome everybody. Inshallah, we started with the beginning of the Qur'an, and inshallah ta'ala we're going to be starting with the end today, inshallah, Surah An-Nas. But before we do that, as I mentioned before, and as we've been in the habit of doing, we want to mention at least one hadith about the virtues of the Qur'an, about the beauty of the Qur'an, the reward in its recitation, what we get from it, what is to be gained for us individually if we have a relationship with the Qur'an, so that we can have a proper perspective about what this book really is. And the ayah today is collected in Silsila al-Ahadith al-Sahiha by Shaykh al-Albani rahimahullah. So it's an authentic hadith. It's very small, but it's very beautiful because it's about investment, which of course investment is very important. Right? When you think about investing in your future, whether it's for financial wise or for marriage or investing more importantly for your hereafter, istithmar, and it's important. Especially, if you're a businessman or you're a parent or you're a husband or a wife, when you're thinking about the future, it's important to have investment in different things. And of course, if you're a believer, it's important to invest in your akhirah. The Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam, he said, "Man 'allama ayatan min kitabillah azza wa jal, man 'allama ayatan min kitabillah azza wa jal, kana lahu thawabuha ma tuliyat. Kana lahu thawabuha ma tuliyat." That whoever teaches someone a single verse from the Qur'an, they will get the reward every time that verse or that ayah is read. Whoever teaches someone one verse, one ayah. For example, Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. That's one ayah. If you teach somebody that ayah, every single time they read it, you're racking up rewards with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And so, those of us who are parents, those of us who are mothers and fathers, how beautiful is this for us? Because the first person who has to teach their children in the salah is who? Before the ma'alin, the teacher in the duksi or in the madrasa or in the weekend school, before the Islamic studies teacher, before an imam in the masjid, who's the first person that's going to teach their children how to pray the salah? It's the parents. And of course, if you want to teach your children how to pray properly, something that you're going to teach them, and is some surah from the Qur'an, some chapters of the Qur'an. So not just one verse, not five, several different verses that by default you have to do that. And imagine if you teach them, like the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he said, by the time they're 7, you should at least start. You can start before that if you want, but he said by 7, you have to start teaching them how to pray salah. And then by 10, you have to enforce it in your house. Even if you had to discipline them, you have to enforce it in your house by the time they're 10. So imagine that. Imagine your child lives to be 20, 30, 50, 70, 80 years old. Every time they read an ayah from the Qur'an, even if you're long gone, even if you're gone as a mother or father, you're still getting reward. We're not talking about dua they're making for you. Something they have to do. Every time they have to pray. 5 times a day. And every time you're getting ajr. When they're reading. If you're a father or a mother. Tayyib. What if you say, but I'm not a parent. I don't have any kids. Tayyib. If you're a student in school, I assure you, there are brothers who are around you. There are sisters who are around you, if you're a sister, who could benefit from learning verses of the Qur'an from you. I remember I was at one of the MSAs. I'd rather not say which one, but locally here in Minnesota. And I asked a brother to read, Allahumma salli ala Muhammad. I asked a brother to read Surah Al-Qari'ah. Al-Qari'atu mal-Qari'ah, wa ma adraka mal-Qari'ah. This person, I knew them, which is why I asked them. I didn't feel like I would be embarrassing them. It's a surah from Juz Amma. It's a simple, small. This brother's in college, and he had already been going to madrasa for a number of years. And can you imagine? He didn't know how to read Surah Al-Qari'ah. He didn't know how to read. But we don't have to embarrass him and be like, astaghfirullah, this guy, he's already in college, he's this old, and he doesn't know how to read it. I can look at that like an opportunity for me. And you could look at that like an opportunity for you. Because it's so simple, because it's so easy, wallahi, it's like an opportunity for me to invest. Other people, they miss the opportunity. Other people may have missed that opportunity, but it's like I got this awesome opportunity to invest by just teaching him some simple verses. And then after that, every time. And I ask you, how long does he have to keep praying? Brothers, sisters. That brother, how many times a day does he got to pray? 5 times a day. For how long? Every day. For how long? For the rest of his life. What would take you 5-10 minutes to share with him? Khalas. That 20 minutes, even if it took you 1 hour, even if it took you 3-4 days, every day you met, you come and study for your ACTs, you come and study for your ACTs, or you come and study for your little biochemistry class, whatever, and then you be like, okay, brother, we're going to do a couple ayahs today too, until you finish that, inshallah. It'll take you nothing. But it's a what? It's an investment. So that every time after that, you're racking up rewards. You're at home sleeping, wallah. You're at home catching Z's, resting, working on your beauty sleep, and you getting rewards, akhi. Allahu Akbar. Tayyib. You be like, okay, but what about us miskeen brothers or even sisters? We're not married. Tayyib, what about? Okay, what about, say for example, there are new Muslims. New Muslims. Imagine you teach one of them Surah Al-Fatiha. The same thing with the salah. Now every time when they're new Muslim, they're just learning how to pray, and you catch that opportunity, you're the first one to get there and be like, okay, I'll teach you Surah Al-Fatiha. Then after that, the same thing. For how long, brother? Until when? For the rest of their life. And every time you're somewhere else playing basketball, akhi, and they're somewhere else in a different time zone, and it's time for them to pray, and you're playing ball, going for an alley-oop, akhi, and they're praying, and you're getting reward. Allahu Akbar. That's the beauty that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, one of the beautiful things that Allah has placed in Islam, that He makes the opportunities for reward for us to get closer to Him plentiful and easy. Plentiful and easy. And this is something that is extremely, extremely important. I want to take a minute about when I said about for new Muslims. This is something, brothers and sisters, that we have to, especially those of us who are born Muslim, especially those of us who know the Qur'an or have memorized the Qur'an, that we have to give time for our brothers and sisters to share with them. Sometimes they might be at a masjid, like as you all know, right? Up until we started having programs here recently in September, was there an imam here? There was no imam in this masjid, right? The masjid was here, but there was no one here. So let's say anybody in this area who enters into Islam and is a new Muslim and he wants to learn, and there's no imam at the masjid, what's he going to do? He's got to go, he or she's got to go somewhere else, right? But we said just Surah Al-Fatiha. Does it have to be an imam, alim, fadil? Does he have to be a sheikh to teach Surah Al-Fatiha? I want you to raise your hand right now. Who knows Surah Al-Fatiha in here? Everybody here knows Surah Al-Fatiha. Sheikh, you know Surah Al-Fatiha? Don't worry, inshallah, you get it, inshallah. Inshallah. But almost everybody here knows it. Alhamdulillah. Huh? Oh, you do? That was quick. Allahu Akbar. MashaAllah. In the time span that I asked you till now, you learned it. Allahu Akbar. No. But this is something that is extremely important. Why? Because this is part of the way that we show our brothers and sisters who embrace Islam that we care about their spiritual growth, that we care about them. Because the salah is from the word sila, and sila means connection. So the salah is your connection to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. When you take the time and the effort to teach a new Muslim brother or sister Surah Al-Fatiha, that shows that you care about their spirituality and their connection with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala the same way you care for yourself. But this is something you have to do. In another hadith, ما رواه Imam Ahmed rahimahullah, he said about having to care about your brother or sister. He said, لا يبلغ عبد حقيقة الإيمان حتى يحب للناس ما يحب لنفسه من الخير. He said that a servant, and of course all of us, we're all servants of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We're all slaves of Allah. Sometimes we kind of chafe under that word. Some people, we don't like it. Someone calls you abd, sometimes we don't like that word. But wallahi, everybody in this room, everybody on the face of this earth is an abd to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It's just that some people admit it, some people don't. But al-muhim, the Prophet ﷺ, he said a servant, which means you and you and you and myself, does not reach the reality of faith until he loves for other people what he loves for himself from khair, from good. And let me ask all of you now, and I want you just to raise your hand. Do you want to go to Jannah? Yes. Do you want to be close to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? Do you want to have a connection with Him? The Prophet ﷺ said, if that's what you want, and of course we all said we do, it is from the completeness of your faith that you want the same thing for other people. وَمِن بَابِ الْأَوْلَى مِنَ الْمُسْلِمِينَ. And of course, who's the first into that is that we want good for the Muslims. كما قال النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم لا يؤمن أحدكم حتى يحب لأخيه ما يحب لنفسه. The Prophet صلى الله عليه وسلم, he said, you're not really a believer. لا يؤمن أحدكم حتى, until you love for your brother or you love for your sister what you love for yourself. Now the ulama, they explain, it doesn't mean that you're a kafir, it doesn't mean that you're a non-Muslim, but until you love for your brothers and sisters the same way you want things for yourself. And everybody here said we want Jannah. All of you raised your hand. You have to want that for other brothers and sisters too. And you know for a fact that we have to pray. And you know for a fact, because that's what we've been talking about for these last few weeks about Surah Al-Fatiha, in order for you to pray, you have to have that surah. And so the taking of time for our brothers and sisters who have embraced Islam to teach them that. And not for any of us to think, oh, that's the imam's job. The imam is busy. He's teaching muhadarat, he's teaching classes, maybe he's traveling, maybe he's doing counseling, maybe he's marrying people. And again, when I asked how many of you know Surah Al-Fatiha, almost everybody in this room raised their hand, except for this young man. He, mashallah, he learned it in like 5 seconds. Allahu Akbar. So that means every one of you are able to do something about that. Even a young person, wallahi, when we used to study in Medina, we would be in the masjid. One of the first teachers or people who were teaching me was a young boy. Wallahi, he was 6 years old. When we went to study with the sheikh, when the sheikh, he got too busy and there's too many students, he said, okay. And he had one young student, min atqan al-tullab fi makharij al-huruf wa-tajweed. He was one of the most proficient students in his recitation of the Qur'an and his tajweed. He said, go read with him. And I was sitting with a 6-year-old. And you know what surah I was reading? Surah Al-Fatiha. I was reading Surah Al-Fatiha. And I was being taught by a 6-year-old. And you know how old I was at that time? I was 22 years old. And I'm sitting with this little 6-year-old. But the point is what? I'm saying that because even you young brothers and sisters, even in here, even you could be involved in some way, shape, form, or fashion. But the hadith, just so that for everyone to hear it again, من علم آية من كتاب الله عز وجل كان له ثوابها ما تليت. That whoever teaches someone a verse of the Qur'an, and really what you are saying when we say that, brothers and sisters, when you're saying you're teaching someone a verse of the Qur'an, you are teaching them the speech of Allah. You are teaching them revelation. You are involved in the most sacred thing. Because it's the speech of Allah. It's not anybody's words. You're not teaching him a line from a song. You're not teaching him some verses from some poetry or a formula from math. You're teaching this person what could possibly be, that one verse could be the tipping scale for them to go to Jannah. And you would have been the one that's involved in teaching them that. Don't all of us want that opportunity to have that kind of investment? MashaAllah. At least he knows. Alhamdulillah. And so we ask that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make us of those who are always looking for opportunities for good. And that he make us of those who love for others what we love for ourselves. And we ask that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala guide us to that which is best. Allahumma ameen. Naam, tayyib. And so, inshallah, we're going to be starting with, bi'ithnillahi ta'ala, Surah An-Nas. But before we move on, are there any questions? Are there any questions? But yeah, I should be asking some questions. Isn't that right, Sheikh Muhammad? Said every time pretty much when we start, I always ask questions, right? Okay, tell you. So what surah, Sheikh, we were studying last week? What surah were we studying last week, Sheikh? You. Mm-hmm. Al-Fatiha, Surah Al-Fatiha. MashaAllah. Tayyib. Can anybody tell me what we studied all those days? Is it 5, 6 days we studied that surah? What are some things that we studied about that surah? Bismillah. Anybody? Your salat is not accepted without it. It's a pillar of the salah, of the prayer. Yes. Is that important? Why is that important? Mm-hmm. No, that's good. Jazakallah khair. Now, so he was the only person who was listening, huh? Nobody else? Bismillah. Sheikh Hassan. Yes. I saw you raise your, which one? Oh, you raised your hand? Oh, he took it? Allah. Okay, alhamdulillah. But you raised your hand too, right, when you did like this? No? Huh? Sheikh Tamam. Inshallah, you got to set a good example, huh? One thing that, from any of the time that we talk from Surah Al-Fatiha, one thing that you remember. Huh? Tawheed and Ikhlas. Okay, tell me, how do we, Tawheed and Ikhlas from talking about Surah Al-Fatiha? Elaborate. Where is the Tawheed in Surah Al-Fatiha? Where is the Tawheed? Huh? Which ayah is that? The verse, which verse? إِيَّاكَ نَعْبُدُ وَإِيَّاكَ نَسْتَعِينُ. That is the epitome of Tawheed. Imam Ibn al-Qayyim rahimahullah, he said the entire message of the Qur'an is encapsulated in Surah Al-Fatiha. And the entire message of that, the message of all of the prophets is encapsulated in the Qur'an. Of all of the prophets and messengers, their message. And then that is encapsulated in the Qur'an, and the entire message of the Qur'an is encapsulated in that surah, Surah Al-Fatiha, and the entire message of that surah is encapsulated in that ayah or that verse, إِيَّاكَ نَعْبُدُ وَإِيَّاكَ نَسْتَعِينُ. And what is the message of all of the prophets? The worship of Allah and the oneness of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That He is one, and that God who is only one, He's the only one that we should worship. Jazakallah khair, Shaykh. What's that? That you're praising and thanking Allah. Alhamdulillah is praise and thanks to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And we praise Him because He's Allah, because of His beautiful attributes and His characteristics, because of what He does for us. We thank Him and we appreciate Him. Barakallah feek, Shaykh, mashallah. Sallallahu an yaziduka fi ilmin nafi'. Allahumma ameen. Now, anybody else? Yes, sir. Tawheed al-asma'i wa sifat. Uh-oh, you come with some big terminology here, brother. Huh? Ar-Rahman and Ar-Rahim. What do those mean? Which one is it? Which one? Which one is which? Ar-Rahman is the most merciful, and Ar-Rahim is especially merciful. Now, Jazakallah khair. Tayyib. Anybody else that was here? Ya Jama'ah, this is Surah Al-Fatiha. You read this surah every day. Sisters in the back. Can anybody tell me one benefit that they've gotten from all these days that we've covered Surah Al-Fatiha? This is important, ayyuha al-ikhwa wal-akhawat. The Salaf, they used to say, knowledge is muraja'a wal-mudhakira, is you going over things and repeating it. Otherwise, how is it going to stay in your heart and in your mind if you just it goes by you one time and you never say it again or never talk about it? You'll notice, I'll give you something important about studying and learning. It's one of the best ways that you can retain and remember something is when you discuss it with someone else. When you're with your teacher or your instructor or whoever, right? Normally, how do they teach? You sit in front of them, they're in front of you, and they just talk, right? And they talk, and they talk, and they talk, and then you just got to take your notes and remember that stuff, and then khalas. And then you try to study it and come back and put it back on the paper. Yeah? One of the best things that will help you as a student, and this is for any type of study, but especially when it comes to the knowledge of the religion and knowledge of the deen, knowledge of the Book of Allah and the Sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ, is that when you study something, you take a benefit or a fa'idah or lata'if, some kind of wisdom, or is that when you take it, that you mention it to someone else, and not only that you mention someone else, that you discuss it. that there's back and forth, because now the juices in your head are flowing and you're thinking about it. And you're thinking, and maybe he gives you another way to think about it, or a different aspect that didn't occur to you at the time when you were sitting and listening. So now, we ask one more time, inshallah. And what I'm going to do to save us all time, I'm just going to go down the line. Everybody, if you've already said something, khalas. No problem, you don't have to. But if you haven't, you have to say at least one thing. Because I've been talking a whole lot. I know how long-winded I can be sometimes. I know I said a whole lot of stuff. So y'all better be able to come up with one thing. One thing. Bismillah, one thing. Allah explains to us who He truly is from this surah. When you hear that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is Rabbul Alameen, that He is Lord of all the worlds, Maliki Yawmiddin, that He is the owner of the Day of Judgment, Ar-Rahman Ar-Rahim, that He's the most beneficent or the most merciful, and the especially merciful, He's telling you who He is. طيب, that's one. Jazakallah khair. Did you already say something? Okay, Bismillah.
We're asking Allah to guide us on the path of the people who His favor is upon, and not the people who His anger is upon.
طيب, Jameel. Jazakallah khair.
Even though we ask Allah to guide us every single time, we shouldn't be comfortable with not getting this guidance.
Hey, we should understand and know that we are utterly and completely reliant on Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for guidance. Constantly. And that will never change. Barakallahu feek. Now.
You told us the importance of praising Allah before we ask of Him, and after we ask, we want to say Ameen.
Allah. Jazakallah khair. Thank you, brother. Now. What about al-Kitab? Huh?
It's basically the first.
Okay, how about this? What is al-Kitab? What is this? What are those words?
Mother.
Mother of?
The whole Quran, the Kitab.
Naam. What is? Surah Al-Fatiha. And so al-Kitab is one of the it is one of the names of Surah Al-Fatiha, Al-Kitab. And yes, the reason why it's called Al-Kitab is because it's the mother of the entire book. Now, because remember we said what Imam Ibn al-Qayyim said, that everything goes back to this chapter. And because everything goes back to it, just like you and I, we go back to our what? To our mother. We go back to our mother. That's where we come from. That's our origin. No matter how big you are, but all of it goes back to your parents. Starting with your mother. So then, طيب, so the Qur'an, because all of the Qur'an goes back to the Surah Al-Fatiha, it's Kitab. Jazakallah khair, brother. Barakallah feek. Now. Allahu Akbar. Bonus cookies. This brother had already said something and he said another thing. MashaAllah, tabarakallah. But the Qur'an is shifa. Shifa'un lima fi sudur, as Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, but especially Surah Al-Fatiha. The Prophet sallallahu taught us that it is something to be used as a means of medicine, even for physical sicknesses. Barakallah feek, brother. Jazakallah khair. Now.
We also ask Allah, and Raz mentioned the path that Allah guided all those ahead of us, those who are righteous.
Those who are righteous. Give me two examples. Other than the Sahaba or the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Of those people before us. Okay, shuhada and salihin. Give me some names, some figures who are not the Sahaba and the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Yani for ashayn haula, mashallah. Give an example. A name of somebody. Don't worry, it's not a trick question. It's not a trick question. Imam al-Shafi rahimahullah, mumtaz, alhamdulillah. Imam Malik rahimahullah, naam. Jazakallah khair. طيب شيخنا, one thing, one benefit. Yes, he did. MashaAllah, tabarakallah. And he said something too. Did you say something, brother? Yeah, you spoke a couple times. No? Bismillah. Huh? The mother of prayer? Salah? You might be trying to ride on his coattails from the Kitab, but that's not it though. Although it is a pillar of the salah, it is an integral part of the salah, but we don't call it Salah. So is there something else? Something that we mentioned in the class? I know there got to be something. One thing. I think it's almost time to pray, yeah? We have to pray, brother. Bismillah. And then there's sisters, they're patiently waiting. We have to get from them too. Yeah, I didn't forget y'all. Huh? We're going to come back to you. Someone's going to give you sadaqah, inshallah. Sheikh. Allah. The meaning of the word al-Fatiha is the opening. Barakallah fi. You already said something? Brother. Yes, sir. Master of the Day of Judgment. Allahu Akbar. Who's the master of the Day of Judgment? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Na'am. Barakallah fi. Allah. And then it will count for him, inshallah, as a sadaqah for him. Bismillah. Allah. The Prophet ﷺ, he said, أعظم السورة في القرآن سورة الفاتحة. The greatest surah in the Qur'an is Surah Al-Fatiha. Na'am. Jazakallah khair. Nabil. How you doing, brother? Assalamu alaikum. One thing that you've learned since you've been here, Akhi, about Surah Al-Fatiha. And that difference is?
Ar-Rahman is a mercy of Allah that is applied to all creation.
Allah.
And Ar-Rahim is specifically reserved for the believers on the Day of Judgment.
Allahu Akbar. And he just walked in. Allahu Akbar. Steph, you were here last week, right? All right, Bismillah. We ready?
You're required to say it 17 times a day.
Allah. And how's that? Pray salat. Allahu Akbar. Jazakallah khair. Shaykhuna. Abdullahi. That's his first and his last name, by the way. Now.
We learned that the people that angered Allah the most were the Yahud.
And why is that?
Because he sent messenger after prophet to them, and they still rejected his word.
Naam, and they still rejected. Naam. And that's more than reason enough for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to be displeased and angry with them. Barakallah fiqh. Tayyib. So inshallah, then it's time for the salah now. Sheikh Hamza is going to give the adhan, inshallah. We're about to pray. And then after that, when we start, the sisters also have to give answers. Don't think y'all got off the hook, inshallah. When we come back, when we start for the prayer. Wa sallallahu wa sallam ala nabiyyina Muhammad wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in. Now, so as we mentioned just before the salah, we said we would give the sisters an opportunity to also participate and answer one thing that each learned from Surah Al-Fatiha. So I don't have my glasses, and alhamdulillah, so we're going to trust that y'all are just going to go around, and we want one answer from every sister who's able to answer, inshallah. Now, so one thing that we learned from Surah Al-Fatiha. So one thing. Okay, khalas. Starting with the two sisters right there. No, you ain't got to look back, brother. What you need? Now, one thing. His prayer is invalid. Barakallah fiki. Tayyib, then the sister next to you. Again? She said it's like a dua. It can be used as a dua. The entirety of the surah teaches us how to pray and how to make dua. And yes, there is dua in the surah. ماشي حال inshallah. Okay, now. But one of the main things related to this surah and about dua, two things. One, that it is in and of itself a dua. It is in and of itself a dua because you're specifically asking for things from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That's number one. Number two, from dua, it also teaches us the etiquettes of dua. And how the wording, the type, not necessarily the exact words you should use, but the wording that you should use. And how you should speak to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Because when you're making dua, you are speaking to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And there's a certain way and manner that you should do so. Now, okay, next sister. Jazakallah khair, by the way, sister. Bismillah. If the sister doesn't know, go on to the next one. Surah Al-Fatiha is, what did she say? Sab al-Mathani. Nah. And what does that mean? The 7 often recited verses. The 7 often recited verses. Yes. Sabul Mathani. And this is also one of the names of Surah Al-Fatiha. Jazakallah khair. Next sister. And by the way, don't be afraid to talk to each other and ask each other. That's what studying is. That's what being a student is. Now, there's only 3 sisters back there? No? Bismillah. Yes, Bismillah. Allah speaks about Surah Al-Fatiha in a way that He doesn't speak about other surahs. MashaAllah. Now, definitely the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ, the Sharia, speaks about Surah Al-Fatiha in a way that it didn't speak about any other surah in the Qur'an. And actually, yes, you could even say because the term Sab'a al-Mathani is actually mentioned in the Qur'an. So yes, you could say even Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala speaks about this surah in a way that He doesn't speak about any other surah. Which is why the Prophet ﷺ said, Ya a'zam al-surah fi al-Qur'an. Jazakallah khair, sister. Tayyib. You didn't want to take too long on that. I just want to mention why I'm doing this, the importance of us studying and learning, the importance of us doing this together, and then we'll open up for questions, inshallah. Because this is something, brothers and sisters, that is extremely, extremely, extremely important. In the time of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, all those hundreds of years ago, in this small town called Medina, they didn't have a school. They didn't have several different teachers sitting in a classroom with 35, 40 students, 50 students, where they're teaching and information constantly. Qur'an and ahadith and so on and so forth. The way that they learned then with the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam is more so when they were walking with the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, when they were traveling with the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, when they had a sleepover at his house, when they went to go and stay with the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. For example, Ibn Abbas would say, we prayed Qiyam al-Layl together with the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. They would be with him. And so this religion, this Islam, this way of life, it wasn't so compartmentalized that you only study and learn at specific times. They did have times, Yawm al-Jumu'ah, where they would all come collectively together, the men and the women and the children, everybody would come for Jumu'ah. And of course the Prophet ﷺ would give a sermon, but it was more like motivation and encouragement and inspiration, and even to put the fear of God in people. Where the Prophet ﷺ, sometimes his face would get red, his eyes would get red because of how strong and the language that he was using to remind the people. That was Jumu'ah. And he says that he had one time for the women because they specifically came and asked to sit with him, so he made a time for them. But most of the learning that they did, for example, the Prophet Mu'adh ibn Jabal, he would say, كنت رديف النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم على حمار فقال لي. I was riding, Mu'adh ibn Jabal radiallahu anh, he said, I would be with the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam riding on a donkey behind him. And then he would teach me something. Or the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam is walking with Ibn Abbas, and he would say, Ya ghulam, u'allimuka kalimat. Young man, I'm going to teach you some words. Just when they're walking. And the point here is what, brothers and sisters? Is that our Islam and our learning Islam, it has to be something that you're active and engaged in. It can't be passive where you just kind of like come and sit and you listen to a halaqah, because you're not going to remember nothing. You're not going to remember anything that way. And because we're not afforded the time, like you can't hang out with a sheikh all day, right? You got to go to school. You got to go to work. You got to take care of your household. You got bills you got to pay. You got stuff you got to do. That's just how America's built. You have no choice. You got different things you have to do. So in order for us to better utilize and be more efficient in the time that we have, you got to be engaged. You know how I keep asking you questions? This is what the Prophet ﷺ used to do when he did sit and teach with his Sahaba. He used to ask them. And you know the phrase they always had? There's a statement they always said. Whenever the Prophet ﷺ would ask them, do you know this? Or do you know the answer to this? Does anybody know what they used to say? Allahu wa Rasuluhu a'lam. Sometimes it would stop there and then he would give them the answer. But sometimes, no. He would ask them again until they would answer. But the point here is what? That's the way that the Prophet ﷺ used to teach his Sahaba, by asking them and them responding. By him, when he taught them something, him checking on, did you do what I told you? For example, after Fajr, the Prophet ﷺ asked the companions, did any of you all go visit somebody who was sick? Abu Bakr Siddiq raised his hand. He said, did anybody go and help somebody who was needy? Who y'all think raised his hand? Abu Bakr Siddiq. He said, did you visit a relative? Who do you think raised his hand? And when he said, did you visit someone who's sick, someone who, Allahumma salli ala Muhammad, or a relative? And every time Abu Bakr Siddiq's raising his hand, it's at Fajr. It's at Fajr time. But the thing that the point is here is what? Is the Prophet ﷺ is asking. He's checking. Because who taught him he should do that? Who taught Abu Bakr he needs to do that? The Prophet Muhammad ﷺ. He's checking on him, seeing, is he learning what I'm teaching him? Are these Sahaba, these companions, are they soaking in what I'm telling them? And if they are they doing it? He's checking. This is a part and parcel of learning, brothers and sisters. You have to be engaged. Every time you come here, be prepared. Be prepared to answer questions. Be prepared to respond. This is something that we have to do Because then it gives you an opportunity to articulate what you know. Because maybe somebody's going to ask you while you're at school. Some non-Muslim might ask you, I see you, when I see you in the corner, like, you just whisper, what you saying when you over there? You just going to tell him, Kitab? He don't know what that means. Or you going to tell him, Sab al-Mathani? They don't know what that means. Right? You're going to have to do what? You're going to have to explain to them. You're going to have to elaborate for them. Right? And you're not going to be used to that if you're just sitting here looking at me while I'm talking. Some of you might, mashallah. Some of you, mashallah, maybe you're like Imam Bukhari. You're going to memorize everything. Some of you might be like Imam Shafi. Mashallah. Mashallah. Maybe, I don't know. But you have to be engaged. This is how you learn. And when you start to learn, that's when you can apply. When you learn, that's when you can apply. And when you can apply, right, that's when things really start to stick. And when they really start to stick, you're like, okay, I'm comfortable now. There's meaning behind my Islam because I know what I'm talking about, I know what I'm doing, and I know what I'm doing. And I'm doing it. Then what's the next step? If you are learning and you're doing, what's the next step, Sheikh Tamal? If you're doing it yourself, what's the next thing? You got to start making da'wah. You got to be teaching other people. That's how the khair and the beauty of Islam spreads. That's how it establishes and stays in a place. Is that we're learning, and that's why I said it has to be something that we're all doing together, right? Because we need our young people that are learning. We need our young people that are learning, brothers who are in college, sisters who are in college, teenagers, children, everybody's got to be involved. Our sisters, the mothers and the aunts, the fathers, they all got to be involved. Because then, like I said, that's when the khair, that's when the Islam and the beauty of Islam is shown. Because our children know what they're doing, they have meaning, there's meaning to their Islam. And it's not just only the men come to the masjid and they know all the hadith and they know all the Qur'an and the sister doesn't know nothing and she's just sitting at home cooking. But she knows her religion too and her deen too. And that it's for all of us. And that is how Islam is established. That is how it's established and it has longevity for the future. That not just for us and this funny mic, not only for us, but for the generations to come. Wallahi, you don't even realize it, brothers and sisters, you don't even realize it. When you are sitting and learning here, that is, you are getting one step closer to being able to better empower and infuse someone else afterwards. And then that goes to somebody else. And then that goes to somebody else. What that means is what? That means the other generation. When you're sitting here learning, that means your kids are going to know too. What you're sitting here learning, brothers, that means your kids are going to know. That means your wife is going to know. Because you're learning now. And if you and your wife know, and then your kids know, then that means what? When they have kids, they're going to know too. But if you don't know, and they don't know, you think your kids is going to know? It doesn't work that way. Or these young people, when they're free, when they have more free time now, do you think they're going to learn when they're older and they're busy and they got bills to pay and then they got kids and they got mouths to feed? If they don't learn when they're young now, Sheikh Hassan, does life get busy when you get married? Sheikhuna, does it start to get busy? Does it start to get busy, Sheikh Yusha? Does life start to get busy? Quite busy. When the kids start coming, is it busy? Then you're going to be like, where's the time? 24 hours ain't enough. You're going to be like, 24 hours ain't enough. And so if if our kids aren't learning now, when they're 25, they probably, Allahu A'lam. Allahu A'lam. And if that happens, that's like a link in a chain. And it's like a weak link. And then it's only get weaker and weaker and weaker. And that's why this is extremely important, brothers. So I'm just saying this to say that when I ask you, wallahi, it's not to put people on the spot. It's not to embarrass anybody. right? It's not to do that. Wallahi, this is what my sheikhs used to do this is what they used to do with us. And if you look at any of the scholars who are Rabbaniyun, this is what they do. I'm not saying I'm from the Rabbaniyun, I'm just saying we trying to be like them. We following in their example, right? If you look at Shaykh Uthaymeen, for example, rahimahullah, mashallah. Whenever he has a class, his class is like 20, 30 minutes, right? And the rest is just Q&A. He's just asking questions. And it's not just the people asking him, he's asking them questions too. But al-muhim, we ask that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bless all of us to have beneficial knowledge, and He bless us with the knowledge that He has given us. And we ask that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala protect us from knowledge that doesn't benefit, and that He join all of us the same way that He joined us here, that He join us in Jannat al-Firdaus al-A'la. I thought it was important to mention, Allahumma ameen. I thought it was important to mention this, to forego what we were going to explain today, because ayyuhal ikhwa wal akhawat, this is extremely, extremely important. Your religion cannot be something passive. You have to be engaged. Not just in your learning here, when there's opportunities for good, when there's opportunities to share, when there's opportunities to participate, that's how you grow in your religion. That's how you grow in your deen. That's how you don't become stagnant and you get stuck on like like on a plateau, and it's just like this. This is how you keep going up. And we ask that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala continue to have us to do that.